I remember that Saturday morning clearly, how the sun wrapped its golden arms around me while I prepared to step into a realm where I could finally be the confident activist I yearned to be. The mood was buoyant, crackling with the energy of friends gathering together, united for a cause that we believed in deeply. Maplewood, with its winding paths, vibrant trees, and amiable neighbors, felt like the ideal backdrop for this significant moment. I dressed carefully in my favorite shirt, a soft blue that brought out the brightness of my eyes, hoping to harness those little affirmations of self-worth that you dream about when you gaze into the mirror. At about 140 pounds, I felt lighter in spirit, enough to brave the world as an adult, but my heart always carried a heavier weight. Looking good on the outside was a facade I clung to desperately as the inner critic raged within. "Amelia, come on. We have to take some pictures before we head out." My mother's voice, intense and excited, mingled with the sounds of cars bustling outside, the distant murmur of cheerful conversations from my friends. Okay, I'm coming." I rushed down the hall, trying to smile as I approached her, camera in hand, jostling with enthusiasm. Her joy for photography was unmatched, capturing moments that she cherished as milestones in life. Each click of the camera was another snapshot of our lives, a memory to treasure, until this Saturday when it became a harbinger of my heartbreak. As we stood outdoors, surrounded by friends holding signs with spirited messages, their faces painted with determination, I felt a thrill burst within me. It looked so picturesque, so hopeful, and the sun bathed everything in a warm glow. My mom was everywhere, zipping around us, her laughter chiming like the background music of a happy film. She caught my friends mid-laugh, their joy spilling over like sunshine. "Smile big, everyone," she chimed, snapping another picture. I raised both my arms for the camera and laughed, experiencing pure glee as I genuinely tried to channel that medium where my insecurities could dissolve. I longed to be visible among the exuberance, but that hope faltered beneath the weight of memories of past weight fluctuations and my body's constant betrayal. But what happened next crushed that temporary ecstasy. My mother had casually scrolled through her phone later while we were resting on a nearby bench, sipping iced lemonade and chatting breathlessly about the day. "Amelia, look at this," she called louder than before, an endearing grin plastered on her face. I tuned into her enthusiasm, confused. As I turned to peek, a bolt of panic shot through me. It was a candid photo, mercilessly exposing me, not the unbiased snapshot I wished it would portray. Instead, I looked ridiculous. For God's sake, I was cross-eyed, blowing a silly raspberry, a moment that caught me mid-laugh in a way that felt unrecognizable. My skin prickled with horror as I saw how it was already racking up likes. My heart thumped painfully, a familiar rhythm, fear mingled with the throbbing of my insecurities. "Mom, please take that down." My voice came out as an urgent whisper. I felt heat rise in my cheeks, my complexion becoming the backdrop of shame and anxiety. "Why, this is good, look at everyone." She waved her phone, gesturing wildly at all the notifications. "Well, I look horrid, that's the worst picture ever," I blurted, my pulse racing. This was not what I wanted, a raw picture where I had bartered my dignity for a snapshot in time. I wished she could understand. "You are being too sensitive," she exclaimed, a creased frown etching across her brow as she assessed me with clear disapproval. "It's just a moment of fun, Amelia. You will look back and laugh." "Laugh at what?" The fact that I look like a cartoon character. Frustration surged, thinning the edges of my patience. "That's not how I want to be remembered." I struggled to contain the brewing storm of emotion within me. As I grew more agitated, her defensive tone sharpened, echoing through the air. "This is a memory, a moment in time. It's not like I'm trying to hurt you." Each word she hurled struck me like cold water, consuming me, solidifying the chasm between us. How could she be so oblivious? I felt as if I were trapped in a frame of glass. One moment I longed for clarity, and yet here I was, shattered. "I don't understand why you cannot be proud of our family moments, Amelia. Do you think people will care about how you look in a picture?" "Oh, so now it's about pride," I practically shouted, my voice shaky as vulnerability squeezed at my throat. I stepped back, needing distance, needing air. "I'm tired of you treating me like a joke. Do you even see how hard I try?" "Hard you try." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "You're overreacting, hun. You're so consumed with how others see you that you don't appreciate the fun. This is the same old story, isn't it?" I felt the weight of tears prickling at the corners of my eyes. "Just disregard how I feel, it doesn't matter, I'm just your daughter. Don't you dare imply I do not care about you." Her eyes blazed, and I saw the moment her words turned into weapons, assaulting me instead of enabling a conversation. You're being dramatic. Dramatic! The word emerged from my lips like a challenge, a heavy, unyielding challenge that suddenly felt indefensible. I had crossed the threshold into unfamiliar territory, my heart pounding in rage mingling with overwhelming disappointment. Suddenly, I turned on my heels, the heat of anger adding fuel to my fire. I understood then that our argument was not merely about this day. It was deep-rooted in years of unmet expectations and silent battles. Whatever, I'm done. I shouted, retreating to the confines of my room, slamming the door shut hard enough that it echoed through the house, drowning out any further protests. Inside, cascading thoughts swirled like a whirlpool, dragging me under. I craved understanding, a bond with her that felt like it was slipping away as the memories of my past blared loudly in my mind, uninvited shadows reflecting back at me. Those moments on the scale, where the cruel digits seemed to determine my worth, fueled my anger, burrowing deeper into my psyche. How could she be so oblivious to my pain? I whispered to myself, my heartbeat thudding vehemently in response. My breaths came fast and shallow, the kind of anger that ignites something raw. It dawned on me, a flash of clarity as I paced the confines of my room. I didn't want to be her shadow anymore. No longer would I merely be the character in her story. My transformation had to begin now, transform the hurt into something fierce and bold. I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling. The seeds of revenge dropped inside my mind like meteorites crashing into an unsuspecting planet. Thoughts spurred into a plan. I would gather my strength, test her emotional defenses, let her feel that splinter. I would show her the consequences of her insensitivity, my own way of reclaiming my narrative. I took a breath, recognizing the storm within this tempest of hurt. And little did I know, the capstone of my rage would go into motion the very next day. Instead of wallowing in despair, I began crafting an identity that was distinct from the perception my mother had of me. I turned the tables on our situation, cultivating a vibrant social media presence, deliberately using the same platforms my mother cherished. Each post became an intricate thread in the grand tapestry of my new life, a work of art meant to disguise the wounds that lay underneath. I would select photos with a keen eye, capturing moments when I felt radiant, the sun illuminating my face as I laughed, surrounded by friends. It was a contrast so stark against that candid photo haunting both our timelines, the one that highlighted my vulnerability, an unintended symbol of my mother's choice, a choice that had unwittingly transformed me. I remembered the day she posted it. My heart sank as I saw my own face twisted in an expression of despair, raw emotion painted across my features. How could she not have seen the damage it would cause? But now I had taken control of my narrative. With every photo I shared, I wrote captions that told tales of my strength and resilience, subtly rebuking her claims of joy in that moment. This journey isn't about forgetting, it's about moving forward, I typed one night, fingers dancing over the keys, a thrill feeding my spirit as I tagged her beneath the post. Each time I invited her to see my transformation, it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that she had buried under layers of misunderstanding and regret. As the notifications began pouring in from friends and acquaintances alike, complimenting my progress and expressing sympathy, I felt an intoxicating rush. The more they encouraged me, the more I could feel the weight of my mother's guilt settle deeper inside her heart, like a stone as she read the supportive messages. Might she be beginning to understand, I thought, as a satisfying grin tugged at the corners of my mouth. The thrill of reclaiming my story, my identity, was exhilarating. Soon enough, the messages began to trickle into my inbox, her words constructing an elaborate blend of concern and confusion. "Amelia, your posts have me worried. Please let me know if you are okay." The first time I read that, a sense of vindication washed over me. I responded, maintaining an unwavering air of strength. "I'm doing great, really. Just on a path towards self-acceptance. Thank you for your concern." I crafted each reply carefully, deliberately leaving out undertones of anger. After all, I was not here to tear her down. I was rising, like a phoenix from the ashes of her ignorance. As the days morphed into weeks, the digital battle resumed on my terms. While she insisted my posts were misunderstandings, I could sense the stress veiling her words, could almost feel the disbelief coursing through her veins each time she caught a glimpse of my transformation. The words began to ripen into something tangible, a conversation lurking on the edge of acknowledgement. The evening my mother sat me down in the living room, I sensed it in the air. The palpable tension transformed the space into a tempest. The television flickered in the background, its light competing with the shadows of our unaddressed past. She wore that expression. My mother was a woman on the brink of something profound, something life-altering. "Amelia, why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling as it broke the silence. The sorrow evident in her eyes reinforced what this questioning represented: fear, regret, and perhaps even a dawning realization of her own failures in understanding me. In that moment, I understood exactly what she was asking. This was no casual inquiry about the social media presence I had carefully curated. No, it was a question about the very essence of who I had become. "You made this choice for me when you chose to share a moment that took so much from me," I replied, my voice steady, proof of my inner strength. Each word flowed with purpose, a declaration meant to shatter the walls that had been built between us. My heart beat fiercely in my chest, and I could feel the familiar sting of tears welling up, but I swallowed them down, no more weakness. "You didn't ask if I was okay," I continued. "You just posted that photo. You sent a message to the world about me that didn't include me." The room went quiet, and I could almost hear the gears shifting in her head, the acknowledgement of her actions sinking in. Her brow creased as she absorbed my response. "It was supposed to be a happy moment, Amelia," she whispered, anguish dripping from each word. I saw her hands clasped together as if she were trying to hold herself together, trying to contain a storm of emotions swirling within her. "You looked so beautiful that day, and everyone was having a good time. I thought you would want to remember it." "That's the thing, though," I retorted, my voice now heavier with the weight of my truth. "You didn't consider me in that moment. You did it for you, for the likes, for the validation. You saw it as happy, but you didn't see my pain." I leaned forward slightly, forcing her to meet my gaze. "I have been fighting to find my own joy, and instead of supporting me, you put me on display, dissecting my vulnerability for anyone to critique." I watched as she flinched at my words. "I never meant to hurt you." Her voice trailed off, as if the weight of her regret was like an anchor pulling her deeper into sorrow. "I thought I was showing the world how bright you could shine." "Brightness does not erase shadows," I replied, "and you sharing my shadow that made it impossible for me to see my light." I could see the glimmer of panic flickering in her eyes, perhaps realizing that her well-intentioned action had backfired remarkably. "Mom, you need to understand something. I'm not that girl in that photo anymore. I'm someone new. I've worked hard for this. I'm not a reflection of who you expect me to be." The silence hovered, thick and palpable, as if the heaviness of our emotions was an entity all its own, crowding the sitting room. There was a war raging within her. I could see it in the set of her jaw and the way her fingers picked at the tiny frayed hems of her jeans. "I thought that moment captured everything you were meant to be, Amelia. You were always destined for greatness. I wanted to share your accomplishments. But at what cost?" I countered. "A cost to my self-esteem, to my happiness. Everything you depict tears me apart when you project your vision of me onto me. I fought to step out of your shadow for once, and now I'm doing it for myself." Her mouth opened and closed, as if she were a fish attempting to breathe outside of water. I didn't see it that way," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to celebrate you. I'm so sorry for not realizing it sooner." Silence enveloped us once again, but this time, it felt like the calm after a storm. I could see something shifting in her demeanor, the storm clouds retreating slightly, revealing patches of bright blue sky. Perhaps at that moment, she began to understand the weight of her actions, and in turn, the growing strength of my intentional rebirth. "Mom," I said gently, "this doesn't mean we can't move forward together. I want to include you in my journey, but it needs to be my journey, not this prefabricated notion of who I should be. I need you to support the real me." She nodded slowly, the warmth in her gaze returning as hope lit the shadows in her eyes. "Can we start over?" she asked, her voice trembling but unwavering. "I want to be there for you in genuine terms." There was something beautiful in that moment, the space expanding between us like a breath of fresh air wafting through an open window. "It's a start," I said, my voice softening. "Thank you for understanding." I could almost feel the weight lifting between us, like a shadow pulling away from the dawn of a new day. The warmth that settled around us was gentle yet firm. It spoke of possibilities and hope, the simple notion that family bonds could reinforce rather than constrain. But still, a part of me wondered if she truly understood, if she could ever comprehend the full scope of her impact on me. Would there be another test of my resolve? An instance where she might inadvertently spiral back into her old habits. The concept loomed like a recurring nightmare, but I knew I could guard myself against it. With courage swelling within me, I felt ready to handle anything, knowing that this time I was the one defining my life, not her, not anyone else. As I glanced at my mother, I realized we were both artists, painting our canvases anew, and I could feel the threads of our complex emotions weaving together. A tapestry rich with growth, understanding, and the promise of brighter days ahead. The days passed, and with every post, it seemed as if the very air in our house was charged with something electric, something heavy, something that I could sense like the impending storm. Each time I pulled out my phone to check the social media updates, I felt myself detach a little more from the life I once shared with my mother. She had become a shadow of her former self, retreating ever deeper into the intricate web she had spun around her perception of who I was. My mother, the proud artist, had a picture-perfect notion of motherhood that was crumbling, fractured by the reality that was unfolding before her. I felt like a dandelion, resilient and wild, breaking through the cracks of the pavement, while she wanted me to remain the delicate flower she had planted. Amidst this shift, my interactions with her grew less and less frequent. I filled my days with bright colors and textures, my easel covered in canvases that reflected my mind, bustling with energy. I had engaged in art classes across town, met others who shared their stories in the most incredible way, and I found my voice unraveling, expanding beyond the confines of our home. The comfort of our routine had faded into a dull ache, and I began to connect with people who inspired me, people who shaped my understanding of myself, and through them, I discovered parts of me that I never expected to find. The initial apprehension morphing into excitement fueled my social media presence, creating a tapestry rich with authenticity rather than empty performances. On that evening, as the sunlight filtered through our kitchen window, casting a golden hue across the room, I stepped inside. The familiar scent of freshly baked bread tinged with the remnants of unspoken words filled the air. The silence felt thick, almost suffocating as I placed my bag down on the countertop. My hands brushed against the cool, worn surface, a juxtaposition against the whirlpool of emotions surging inside me. And then I saw her. My mother, sitting at the table as if which her very essence was being absorbed into the wood beneath her fingers fidgeting with a torn scrap of paper. Time seemed to freeze as our eyes met, her gaze wielding an emotion I had not seen before, fear. "Amelia, we really need to talk," she finally uttered, her voice trembling like fragile glass, afraid to shatter the silence that surrounded us. My heart raced, pumping out suspicion and a rush of indignation. What could she possibly say that would change the course of this unfurling reality? I took a moment, drawing in a shaky breath before sliding into the chair across from her. "What is there to talk about? Have you not seen everything I have accomplished?" I leaned forward, defiance rippling through me, as I hurled her words from earlier days back into her lap, proving that I was no longer shackled by her expectations. "I feel like I don't even know you anymore," she replied, her voice cracking, barely holding onto the frayed edges of her composure. "You have become this person I cannot recognize." The bitter laughter escaped my lips despite the serious nature of the conversation, tinged with disbelief and a touch of irony. "I have become myself, Mother. Just without your version of me overshadowing everything I do." I felt a surge of empowerment with each word I spoke, ditching the chains of who I was supposed to be, her expression soured, her face twisting with palpable pain. The fingers that were fidgeting now clenched over the edges of the table as if seeking stability in the turmoil. "Amelia, it was just a moment, a memory. I did not mean to hurt you. I thought you could take it." There it was, the plea for understanding, and yet it felt like a feeble attempt to brush away the truth. My heart hammered against my ribcage like a wild bird, restless and desperate to escape the onslaught of emotions bubbling within me. "Take it! You can't even see how much you have diminished me with your careless actions. What do you know about my struggles? You chose to broadcast them, turning my life into a punchline." The words emerged like sparks, igniting an inferno I had held inside for far too long. Our voices rose, filling the room with explosive tension, and for a moment, I glimpsed fragments of the woman who had once held me close, wrapped me in warmth during my toughest times. But lurking just beneath the surface of my memories lay the resentment, the sharp thorn embedded deep in my soul, a wound far too fresh to heal. "I thought I was sharing a moment of happiness," she begged, her tears cascading down her cheeks, shimmering like tiny crystals against the backdrop of sorrow. This was the first glimpse of vulnerability I had seen from her, breaking through the hardened shell she showcased to the world. For a mere moment, that flicker of compassion threatened to overtake my anger, but it quickly faded, snuffed out by bitterness once again. You are in love with the idea of being a proud mother. You overlook your daughter's struggles in favor of your own happiness. As the words escaped my lips, they lingered in the air, heavy with the undeniable truth that hung between us like a silent battleground. Gathering my strength, I stood, fueled by a mix of rage and an unexpected sense of clarity, ready for the final showdown that had been brewing for weeks, months, even years. I am more than that single moment you captured. I am evolving into something beautiful, something strong. You cannot hold that against me. The heat of my passion surged through me as I pointed to my heart, ablaze with purpose. Her expression transformed, raw surprise washing over her features, minging with the dawning realization of all she had done. It felt empowering, liberating, as though I had burst forth from behind her shadow, breaking free to let the world see me for who I truly was. No longer a reflection of her image, no longer seeking validation through her eyes. But there was still tension, thick enough to choke on. "Amelia," she whispered, her voice teetering on the edge of anguish. "I only wanted the best for you." I felt the sting of her words, and for a fleeting second my heart betrayed me, softening at her lament. But then anger flared back to life. The best? The best for you, you mean? You've only ever wanted to shine in the light of my accomplishments while ignoring the struggles I faced alone. Each post you shared stripped me of my dignity, turned my life into a spectacle, and I was the fool playing along. I became the joke, while you basked in the laughter of others. A silence enveloped the room, weighted by the echo of my voicing my inner turmoil, a wave crashing against the shore of our fragile bond. Her gaze fell to the table, her hands trembling slightly. I could see a flicker of realization in her eyes, like a candle flickering against the night, a faint glow surrounded by absolute darkness. "Amelia, she began, but I cut her off before she could weave another excuse. "Don't try to defend yourself. You can't defend the way you shattered my trust. I needed you to support me, not to exploit my vulnerabilities." I took a step back, letting the weight of my words settle between us. The space felt larger than it ever had, as if an invisible wall had risen, poised to keep the pain at bay. Her tears were still flowing, carving tracks down her cheeks, each droplet resonating like tiny echoes of seconds wasted in misunderstanding. "I never meant to hurt you like this," she whispered, her voice barely audible, cracking like glass under pressure. "And yet, here we are," I replied, resolution firming in my chest. "You can't keep holding me back, tethered to your image of me. I am not your puppet. I am not defined by your lens anymore. If you loved me, really loved me, you would set me free to be who I want to be." With that, I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving my words, my truth, to hang in the air. It felt like a cold breeze sweeping through an empty space, leaving behind the warmth of familiarity. I was not just Amelia Bennett anymore. I was a canvas of my own making, ready to shape my identity, ready to brush vibrant colors over the stark black and white I had been painted into. I stepped outside, the evening air temperate yet charged with uncertainty, but I felt liberated, even as the lingering ache of affection for the woman I had grown to resent lingered just beneath the surface. This was my moment, my confrontation. It was only a step toward rebuilding, not just my relationship with her, but my relationship with myself. And in that reckoning, I knew I could forge ahead, leaving behind what no longer served me, ready to embrace the world, raw and unfiltered, just as I was meant to be in the aftermath of our confrontation. I felt liberated, my heart swelling with newfound strength, yet lingering shadows danced in the corners of my mind. The ache of our strained relationship gnawed at me, a slow burn that refused to extinguish itself completely. I stood there, caught in the tension of balancing my resilience with the grief of what had once existed between us, and the weight of those old wounds felt heavier than ever. I resolved not to spiral back into blame, to shed the shrouds of bitterness that had once engulfed me. Instead, I sought ways to heal, to grow, to transform my pain into something positive. That desire took root within me like a seed yearning for sunlight, and soon, it sprouted into a commitment to help others just like me. Volunteering at the local youth center became my refuge, a space where I could focus on body positivity workshops and self-image discussions. I wanted to teach young women battling their demons, hoping that I could be the voice of encouragement that I had longed to have in my life. As I stepped into the brightly painted room adorned with colorful posters and uplifting quotes, I could feel the energy buzzing around me, a mixture of apprehension and excitement. Each workshop felt like a release, like I was unburdening my soul, and with every story I shared, I felt lighter, as if I was shedding the weight of my past like an old skin. That day, however, something felt different. An unusual tension hung in the air, as my eyes darted around the room, scanning the faces of the girls seated before me. Suddenly, my gaze landed on her, my mother, standing in the back, her presence striking like a bolt of lightning in a clear sky. She looked nervous, shifting her weight from one foot to another, her hands clasped tightly around her purse. Seeing her there filled me with an odd blend of apprehension and curiosity. Had she come to support me, or was she a reluctant observer, too frightened to face the reality of our complicated relationship? When it was time to begin, I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this moment was not just about me but about everyone in that room. I delved into my story, weaving together the strands of my past, the hurtful experiences, the struggle with body image, the suffocating weight of expectations. As I spoke, I could see the flickers of empathy in the faces of the girls, and I felt my heart open wider, releasing years of pent-up sorrow. The room felt electric with connection, and in that cocoon of vulnerability, I realized I had found my true self. After I finished, I scanned the room, a smile swooping across my face as I witnessed the girls laughing, nodding in understanding, and even wiping away tears. It was a powerful moment, and I felt in my bones that we had all shared something profound together. Yet, standing there, ready to embrace this small victory, I felt a familiar tugging at my heart, the looming presence of my mother. She was waiting for me, and I steeled myself for what lay ahead. I approached her, my hands trembling slightly as I sought to map out the emotional terrain between us. Her warm smile did little to erase the palpable tension. "You were incredible," she said softly, her eyes tearing up. "I had no idea how deep everything went for you, Amelia. I truly did not understand." A gnawing mixture of bitterness and relief flooded through me. "You have to understand that sharing something personal and vulnerable is not a call for embarrassment. It is an invitation for connection," I responded, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded, words trapped somewhere between her heart and her mind, and I could almost hear the gears turning as she grappled with her own remorse. "If I had known, I would have never shared that photo," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I am so sorry for not seeing you." I let her words hang in the air, an olive branch of sorts, both fragile and powerful. The familiar ache lodged itself between us, but beneath it lurked a budding understanding, a chance to rewrite our story. "Thank you," I said, my voice a mix of gratitude and caution. It was a small step, yet it felt monumental. As she began to speak about her struggles, her insecurities, the pressures she faced as a woman, the regrets of her own youth, something shifted within me. I was no longer looking at my mother solely as a maternal figure. I was seeing her as a woman, grappling with her own demons, much like I had. The memories we shared were no longer just snapshots of disapproval or comparisons. They transformed into stories of resilience, tales of struggles we both faced, beautifully messy in their complexity. I always thought motherhood meant being perfect, but I realize now that it is about being real, she said, her voice laced with vulnerability. I looked at her, heart swelling. "Yes, it is about cherishing the journey, even if it is not picture perfect." Our exchanges deepened beyond mere pleasantries, each conversation unraveling old assumptions, fostering a new kind of intimacy that had been elusive for so long. I learned how to establish boundaries, not to push her away, but to create a safe space where both of us could thrive. As she revealed more of her struggles, our conversations blossomed into shared dreams and hopes, tender and hopeful. In relinquishing my bitterness, I discovered a strange sense of freedom. I was finally handling the price of my revenge, not with malice or resentment, but with an understanding that allowed me the grace and compassion to move forward. Through unveiling my raw story, I began to inspire the girls around me too, encouraging them to step into the light, to reach out and share their truths. One day, after a particularly emotional workshop where a girl had bravely shared her own struggles with body image, I reflected on how far I had come. My weight, once a badge of shame and embarrassment, began morphing into something courageous. It was no longer an emotional anchor, but a symbol of resilience. I transformed that pain into a beacon of hope, glowing brightly with the promise of possibility, because I was finally learning to embrace my true self. As I gazed up at the vast expanse of sky outside the youth center, the sun casting warm rays that danced across my skin, I felt a blossoming hope swell within me. It erupted from the deepest parts of my spirit, anchoring my soul in possibilities, reminding me that every moment held potential just waiting to unfurl. Each step I took felt lighter, almost buoyant, as if I had shed the heavy weights of the past and found the strength to navigate ahead with courage and grace. My relationship with my mother, once strained and tumultuous, was evolving into something dynamic, a partnership grounded in love and understanding that extended beyond mere memories captured in photographs. She taught me to view love not only as a memory of idealized moments, but also as something enduring, something that can withstand the tests of time and strain. I had emerged from the shadows, reclaiming my life not through spite, but through compassion and the catharsis of sharing my truth. Little by little, I became interwoven with that vibrant tapestry of other women's stories, each thread reflecting both struggle and triumph. As we joined our voices, our collective experiences unfolded into something monumental, a call for connection that wrapped around us like a warm embrace. With each day, I grew more aware of the thickness of lightness that filled the air around me. I understood that my journey was just commencing, a testament to change, to renewal, and to finding joy flaunting the realities of life rather than hiding from them. And as I cast my gaze back toward my mother, standing alongside me, I felt an unquenchable excitement bubbling within me, an anticipation for the shared adventures that still lay ahead of us.